All right, welcome back. Joining me now is Lionel Fall, who is a reporter with Finance Uncovered. Lionel, thank you very much for joining us on the program. Let me start by asking you, what do you think? African leaders, I should say, have been regarded by the West as corrupt, but some argue that the West is actually providing home for looters from Nigeria and Africa. Do you think the West is culpable as well?
I'm an investigative journalist based in London. And why London is a great place to be an investigative journalist is that when assets and money are stolen from developing countries like Nigeria, more often than not, they get laundered into places like London, into places like the UK, where they find their home in properties, where they find their home in education paid for people's children, where they find their home in investments, etc. So it is a good place to be if you are at the end of the chain of corruption. So that's essentially what I do as a journalist. I focus on corruption, money laundering, and illicit finance that has a London connection and that tends to have also a developing country connection. So the money that gets stolen and where it ends up. The organization that I work for, Finance Uncovered, we have trained a network of over 300 journalists in developing countries, also in reporting and tracking and tracing tax evasion proceeds, illicit financial transactions, things like that. And we work together on this kind of double-ended chain. The idea being that corruption now is global, corruption now is multinational, corruption happens across national jurisdictions. So it's a collaborative investigative project with a specific focus on finance.
Tell me now, what pattern have you discovered or noticed in the way funds are moved out of Africa to the West?
There are many ways. And in fact, you've asked me a question that would be the subject of many a PhD, in fact. The main ways that the money tends to move. One is where multinational companies based in a country like Nigeria, but that have subsidiary companies in other jurisdictions, will avoid paying their tax owed on profits made in Nigeria by charging themselves in other jurisdictions for services provided to the Nigerian host company. And a lot of it is actually largely meaningless services. It will be intellectual property or marketing or payroll or something like that. But it's a way to extract a lot of your profit before you pay the tax on what profit is left. So tax avoidance is a big one. Another quite common way is simply by money laundering. Money laundering, by its definition, is any process whereby stolen money, illicit money, proceeds of bribery, proceeds of corruption, are able to be washed. That's why it's called laundering. It's a laundry machine washes things and brings it out clean. Is washed into the formal and licit economy. So we have illicit funds that somehow are able to be washed into the licit, in other words, the legal financial economy, and find its way out into purchases that, the rich people like: property, investments, pay for children's school fees, these kind of things. And there are multiple ways to do it, but I would say that is one of the other major ways that money is lost from a country like Nigeria.
Do you really think the West is truly helping African governments to fight corruption, or it's just a cosmetic campaign now?
It's a fig leaf. I believe that aid is a fig leaf whereby the West is able to feel good and make itself be seen to be doing good, but actually it conceals that which is under the fig leaf, which is the fact that the West and the financial systems that were set up by the West, maintained by the West, regulated by the West to this current day, are the exact thing that is bleeding Africa of its wealth and allowing wealth to end up in Western developed countries. If you compare what is given in aid versus what is lost in illicit financial flows, there's not even a comparison. So personally, I think the West should put away its aid money and look very closely and carefully at how else its systems and processes impoverish the rest of the world. Whether they will do that, I highly doubt it, because that is a way they maintain their position of prominence politically. But nevertheless, it is a hypocritical position, the aid situation.
Now, tell me, in the course of your career, how has it been reporting stolen funds from Africa to the rest of the world? Has it been something very difficult?
As a journalist, first and foremost, I let my work do the talking for me. So the investigations that I publish and the findings that I do, that's very important. Journalism in and of itself is a hard enough job without you running around telling other people how they must now do their job. But my hope is that through my work and through what one manages to expose, civil society organizations, citizens, policymakers can look at these things and make the appropriate changes. That's not to say that in my day-to-day interactions with these people, we can't have these discussions, but it's very important not to expect journalists to do more than they already do for holding power to account and making, exposing corruption.
All right, Lionel Fall of Finance Uncovered, thank you very much for joining us. We'll take another short break, and when we come back, we'll have an anti-corruption crusader based here in Nigeria speak on Nigeria's anti-corruption war. On DEJI360, we don't just ask the questions. What is wrong with amending the Constitution the way the National Assembly members have been doing it? We seek answers.
The Constitution is constituent. Our problem is not lack of laws. Our problem is lack of the willpower to implement our laws.
Answers that provide clarity.
While we negotiate, we should try to make it a point that the girls must be complete.
The clarity you need to make informed judgment so that you can make the right decision and take action. People are saying it is you politicians that are responsible for this, that you are the reason why this is happening.
All these dollars that call themselves governors in this country?
I wish we had people like Tony at the National Assembly. God forbid that I go to join that ballot.
DEJI360, providing clarity to issues. All right, welcome back. Lanre Suraj of the Civil Society Network Against Corruption now joins us on the program to speak more on this anti-corruption. Lanre, you were also at that workshop. As an anti-corruption crusader, from your findings, what would you say are the effects of capital flight now from Nigeria to Europe?
Well, the effect of capital flights on Nigeria and illicit financial flow are too numerous to actually list, but basically it will draw to a very large extent the most significant ones that you can relate with on a daily basis, and that for me would be the incessant accidents that you have on our roads, resulting in the highest rate of death occurring from fatal accidents on the road is a consequence of this illicit financial flow and capital flight. The absence of basic medical facilities that is also resulting in another phase of capital flight, which you then have in terms of medical tourism, that you have Nigerians having to embark on such tourism to countries where you have improved medical facilities, is also a consequence of this. The falling standard of education in the country is also a consequence of capital flight. The rampaging effect of the Boko Haram and other forms of militancy and terrorism in the country are also consequence effect of capital flight. And it is very simple. If you see how much of many of our public office holders who are currently accused of corruption and illicit financial flow, money laundering, and that also of private investors and businesses, like you heard recently that MTN was accused of also some capital flight from Nigeria, you would see how much of abdication of the basic social responsibilities of both the politically exposed persons, public office holders, and also some of the business interests in Nigeria, how they've, to the extent of even the ones you can see on a daily basis, they have laundered the monies that were allocated for the purpose of improving the economy, improving the social infrastructure, improving the welfare of the citizens, and also providing security for the Nigerians. So the effect of capital flight and illicit financial flow in the country are too numerous for us to actually also enumerate.
Now, give me your honest opinion. How difficult or easy is it for Nigeria to recover its stolen funds, for instance, stashed in the United Kingdom, the United States of America? Of course, we know Switzerland is actually cooperating, but the funds are not coming in as fast as we all expect.
It's been extremely tough and difficult. You will understand that many of these countries are not only benefiting from these, laundered fund and blood monies, they also allow it to circulate in their system. And at that point, it's usually very difficult for them. So if you're looking at the US and you have monies from Nigerians, okay, let's take, for instance, smaller countries like the United Kingdom, and you want to pull out illicit flow that entered the system running to about £3 billion. You can imagine the implication of that for their economy and their financial system. So they put up a very stiff resistance and then try every form of legal gymnastics of saying, yeah, there should be condition, yeah, there's also be a measure of understanding of how the repatriated funds will be utilized. And it is extremely also ridiculous and unfortunate to know that even in the last 2 years of advocacy for the repatriation of even monies that were forfeited to this system, as far back as 2014, 2013, a single dime has not been repatriated into Nigeria. So it tells you how difficult, and that is even in the face of provision under the United Nations Convention Against Corruption that actually specifically stated that the process of repatriation should not be this cumbersome and should not be so encumbered.
Now, you are a civil society leader. Tell me what you think civil societies like yours, non-governmental organizations, and indeed Nigerians can actually or should be doing now to help in the fight against corruption.
Yeah, the first thing is for us to change our orientation and understanding, and then have a clear knowledge of the need to change our value system. We can't be celebrating people with questionable means of livelihood or source of wealth. We can't in any way defend those who are suspected of involvement in money laundering, corruption, and also stealing. We also need to understand that at this stage of the fight against corruption, it is not about the government, it is not about EFCC, it is not about ICPs, it's about the people, and it starts from our homes. It also goes to our places of worship, our religious institutions. It goes to our works. It also goes to our daily life of even how we interact with our artisans and then also our domestics, and even the kind of orientation that we're giving to our children. So it's a fight that must start from everybody's home, and then it's a fight that we must own, and then also make it a duty towards a patriotic duty that we have to Nigeria.
All right, Lanre Suraj, thank you very much for joining us. But don't go away. I still have one more person to talk with, and I'm talking about Kayode Ogundamisi, who is based in the United Kingdom, and of course, he's a well-known anti-corruption crusader. So stay with us, don't go away, because I'll be talking to Kayode next. On DEJI360, we don't just ask the questions. What is wrong with amending the Constitution the way the National Assembly members have been doing it? We seek answers.
The Constitution is constituent. Our problem is not lack of laws. Our problem is lack of the willpower to implement our laws.
Answers that provide clarity.
While we negotiate, we should try to make it a point that the girls must be complete.
The clarity you need to make informed judgment so that you can make the right decision and take action. People are saying it is you politicians that are responsible for this, that you are the reason why this is happening.
All these dollars that call themselves governors in this country.
I wish we had people like Tony at the National Assembly. God forbid that I go to join that band of
DEJI360, providing clarity to issues. All right, welcome back. And joining me right now is Kayode Ogundamisi, who is a journalist and anti-corruption crusader based in the United Kingdom. Kayode, thank you very much for joining us. You live in the UK. Tell me what the feeling is like when you look at the huge properties in the heart of London owned by people who have been accused of corruption back here in Nigeria.
First, it's a feeling of frustration. You're frustrated because as a Nigerian who has lived in Nigeria before moving to the UK, you know how poverty is sort of causing a lot of havoc to millions of Nigerians. And you know that this poverty is more or less as a result of corruption. And the proceeds from this corruption are being used to buy huge properties in England, across the globe, especially in England. And when you talk about where these properties are located, we are talking about eyebrow areas. The cheapest you can find in some of these areas, Knightsbridge, Central London, is probably even a 2-bedroom flat can be sold for as the cheapest would be around maybe £2 million. So you ask yourself how these politically exposed persons would lack the conscience to even invest some of these stolen funds back home in Nigeria rather than buy up properties in the United Kingdom. Most of these properties are left empty. It's not like they occupy them. They just use it as areas. Anytime they want to come on holiday with their children, they stay there. And for most parts of the year, they're left empty. So one is usually frustrated, embarrassed, and of course, some bits of anger.
Now, tell me, is the status of Nigerians as Nigeria as a corrupt nation in any way affecting those of you in the diaspora? Because the general perception, whether we like it or not, is that Nigeria is a corrupt country. And for some of these uneducated, should I say people now based in the West, the general impression is that every Nigerian is corrupt. Tell me how that is affecting you Nigerians now who live abroad.
I mean, you just need to actually present your passport in any public office. British banks, when you go to open an account, if you have indefinite leave to remain, which is source of residency on your Nigerian passport, and you want to open an account, they will treat you differently from the way they will treat a Ghanaian or people from other parts of Africa. Because the perception is that Nigerians are fraudsters, even though they acknowledge that there are lots of Nigerians, hardworking Nigerians, who are doing quite wonderful things in the NHS, that is the National Healthcare System, medical doctors, nurses, even drivers, cab drivers, who have legitimate earnings. But the reputation that you can't trust Nigerians, you know, is there confronting you right from the point of entry in the airport to when you want to go and open an account in the bank, when you want to seek employment in any of the British institutions. There's just that second guessing, even affecting second-generation Nigerians who are British-born, but with Nigerian names. There is that tendency to think twice before empowering people of Nigerian descent. And I think that's the attitude we are trying to change. That's the perception we are trying to change as a people, both as people in diaspora and people at home.
Now, for you, is there any hope at all of recovering the proceeds of corruption kept in places like, especially the United Kingdom and the United States of America?
Look, when you look at the amount of properties credited to Alice Madueke alone, let us even take away Madueke, Proxies, Aluko, and the other guy. When you look at the huge amount of, the financial implication of the amount of property, the volumes of property they have across the globe, you will be shocked as a Nigerian. It's actually quite shocking that this actually took place under the Jonathan administration. We're talking about less than 4 or 5 years ago. We thought Abacha, you know, we would never see anything after Abacha. This makes Abacha looks like an angel. And I think it's important that Nigeria does not I hope she's brought to justice. I hope she is not going to go away out of technicality, and it's pleasing that she's actually been prosecuted in the UK. And it's quite pleasing that she's been, the anti-corruption agencies in the US and the UK have been able to seize some of these properties. But these are just minute parts of a lot of these properties that are spread across the globe. In Nigeria, the EFCC was able to seize, to make her forfeit some of these properties. But beyond that, Alice Madueke is just 0%, 0.1% of a lot of people that are probably going scot-free. You know, she was not the only one in that government. We had ministers who cannot explain the source of their wealth, who are living ever happy after they left government. So we need to spread the tentacles. And I keep saying this, we should not look at the Jonathan government alone. We should look at every government, including the Buhari administration, that the government must critically tackle the issue of corruption that is leveled against people in this government. The case of the grass cutter scandal is out there. It's disappointing that it took the president such a long time before he could act on the report regarding the secretary to the government of the federation. So we need to fight corruption beyond tribe, beyond political parties, and beyond the gender motive.
Kadu Gundamisi, thank you very much for joining us on the program. All right, that's it on the program. If you want to watch it again, it's simple. Just go to our website, tv360nigeria.com. You'll find this program and lots more there. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/TV360Nigeria. Do subscribe to get the latest videos and updates of things happening around the country. I'm talking about Nigeria now. You can join us on Google+. That's at TV360 Nigeria. Just like us on Facebook. The address is facebook.com/TV360 online. You can also follow us on Twitter. Our handle is at TV360 Nigeria. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you again next week.